On the 22nd of November 1944, Allied aircraft patrolling above the front lines between the Allied armies and the Nazi war machine who had left Europe in ashes. North of Strasbourg, Lieutenant Ed Schulter and Lieutenant Donald Myers reported seeing 10 glowing orbs in the air. Thinking it may be a German secret weapon, they turned to engage the orbs, only to have them disappear. What the airmen did not know at the time was the Germans also witnessed the strange orbs. In fact, it is reported that a German anti-aircraft unit shot one down. A crack SS unit was dispatched to capture whatever crashed in the hills north of Strasbourg. Out of 30 men, only 2 survived. This is their story. In the last year of World War II in Europe, many airmen, both Allied and German, reported seeing strange orbs flying above the front lines. The Allies thought they were German. The Germans thought they were from the Allies. The Allies called the strange orbs Foo Fighters. The Germans called them Firestalkers, or Feuerpirscher in German. While the Allies looked at the orbs with curiosity, the Germans responded with fear. They issued orders to all their fighter squadrons and flak units to keep a lookout for these strange new Allied weapons, and if possible, shoot them down. The same night, Lieutenant Schulter and Myers saw the strange orbs. A German flak unit located in the hills northeast of Strasbourg spotted them as well. When they came within range, the unit opened fire. To their surprise, all the orbs immediately disappeared, except one that appeared to be damaged from the German fire. It seemed to go out of control and impact into another hill north of the flak unit's location. They immediately reported the possible shootdown up their chain of command. The overall military commander for that sector happened to be the head of the SS, Reichsfuhrer Heinrich Himmler. Himmler immediately dispatched a 30-man unit from the Waffen-SS division Frundsberg. The Allies intercepted intelligence that proved that a 30-man unit had been sent to recover the crashed orb. However, no other information was heard about the incident until several months after the war had ended. The Nazi government surrendered in early May 1945. Thousands of German soldiers and SS troops were captured and held in prisoner of war camps. While German army soldiers were typically released within a few months, SS officers were often suspected of possible war crimes. Thus, they were held longer. In July of 1945, an SS captain by the name of Hans Raeder was interrogated by an American intelligence officer. The story he told defied belief. The only notes about this story come from the U.S. intelligence officer's own private notes. Officially, the U.S. government says this event never happened. Captain Raeder had fought on the Eastern Front and against the British and Americans in France. His unit, the 10th SS Panzer Division Frundsberg, had been nearly destroyed in the fighting in France. The unit was stationed in the Aachen sector when Raeder was called to a private meeting with his division commander, SS Major General Heinz Harmel. General Harmel explained that Reichsfuhrer Himmler had issued secret orders that Captain Raeder was to carry out. A foreign aircraft of unknown origin had been shot down northeast of Strasbourg. They believed it crashed on a heavily wooded hillside. Raeder was told to ready a 30-man team to retrieve the craft. He was given 4 Opel Blitz trucks, which Raeder found surprising. At that time, vehicles and especially gasoline were hard to come by for the German army. It was obvious to Raeder that this mission must be a top priority for the Nazi leadership. Raeder cherry-picked the 29 best troops he could find in the division and started driving south to the location of the possible crash site. The drive took nearly 2 days due to the constant Allied air attacks. Once they arrived, Raeder broke his unit into 2 15-man squads in order to cover more territory. Raiders said that the area was heavily wooded and he thought it would be impossible to retrieve whatever they may find. However, he decided to at least find the object and take whatever he could carry from the aircraft. Raider was also wary that they may come into contact with Allied forces. The front line was very close and Allied patrols were known to be in the area. Raider ordered strict noise discipline and the two squads fanned out into the forest to find the object. Raider said he noticed that the artillery explosions that they had been hearing from the front seemed to go silent once they entered the forest. Also, there were no noises from animals in the forest, which Raider found odd. After searching for about 2 hours, Raider heard screams and gunfire coming from the direction of the second 15-man squad. He immediately led his unit to the direction of the noise. After rushing to the area, Raider and his men saw 2 SS soldiers stumbling around the forest. Both seemed blind and were speaking gibberish. Raider ordered his medic, a man named Kaufman, to attend to the men. Within minutes, both men began having seizures and vomiting blood, before they both died. Simultaneously, Raider could hear screams and gunfire a short distance away. Raider briefly considered pulling his remaining men out, but decided he could not abandon the second squad to its fate. Shortly, they arrived at the location of the second squad. They found several soldiers dead on the ground. All the dead men that Raider saw seemed to have died vomiting blood. Raider's squad began opening fire to the west. Raider looked to see what he described as a large, bright orb that changed colors frequently, from blue to red to green. It seemed to be as bright as the sun, but it did not seem to hurt your eyes when you stared at it. It was there, floating, perhaps 10 meters off the ground. Raider began shooting at it with his men, but soon he realized their gunfire was having no effect on the orb. Suddenly it changed to a bright red color, and many of Raider's men dropped their weapons and began screaming as they covered their eyes. One man next to Raider screamed that he had gone blind. Raider screamed orders to retreat immediately. He grabbed the blind soldier and ran from the orb. The medic Kaufman joined Raider. Once they had run about 100 meters from the object, the blind soldier began to have seizures. Kaufman tried to provide aid to the soldier, but like the others, he began to vomit blood and soon died. It was at this moment that Raider realized the forest was completely quiet. All the shooting and screaming had stopped. In fact, it was so quiet, Raider said the only thing he could hear was his own rapid heartbeat. Raider considered going back to find his men, but Kaufman steadfastly refused and begged Raider to leave with him. After some thought, Raider decided to leave. More than likely all his men were already dead, and whatever was in the woods was obviously too much for him and Kaufman to handle alone. They went back to their vehicles and drove to the nearest army headquarters to report what happened. Once word of what happened reached Heinrich Himmler, both Raider and Kaufman were detained by SS security personnel. Raider was interrogated by Nazi intelligence officers about what had occurred. To Raider, they seemed genuinely interested in the story and seemed to believe his account of the event. After a month, Raider was sent back to his unit with direct orders to never speak about what occurred. He was told if asked, he was to say his 30-man unit had been caught in an Allied air raid and wiped out. Raider never saw Medic Kaufman again. He fought the rest of the war until he was captured by American forces. Raider's American interrogator asked him what he thought they had encountered. Raider answered, quote, "I truly do not know, but I never thought it was some secret Allied weapon. Looking back on it now, I do not believe the orb was a craft at all. I think it was some kind of being. I have no idea from where, but it seemed to me to react to us the way a cornered wounded animal would. I have faced death many times, but this time was different." Raider added that he felt extreme guilt over the loss of his 28 men. Raider was released from Allied captivity in 1947. Less than a year later, he died. Reportedly, he took his own life. Now, you tell me, was this story fact or fiction? I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. to the Fact or Fiction Files.